Is there a doctor in the house?
Doctor, you have a visitor in the main lobby.
Hey there, it's Steve Meek with Talk to the Doc podcast. The doctor is in, and I'm live here at the Ride a Boom conference. Ride a Boom is this event hyper-focused on cybersecurity. So hundreds of IT professionals, cybersecurity experts, practice managers, and so forth come here to sharpen our knives, if you will, trying to get better, trying to make things more secure. So I thought it would be a great opportunity for me to come in and try and get some feedback from people on what they think that small organizations should be doing to improve their cybersecurity. So let's walk around, talk to a few people, and see what they have to say. Let's go. Hey, how's it going? What's your name, your company name, where are you based out of?
Andy Laren with Allcare IT, and we're based out of Kingston, Ontario, Canada.
Oh, nice. Hey, so I've got one.
Not so nice right now. Lots of snow.
Hey, we just dug out in the south, so I know what that's like. So I've got one question for you. What's the one thing you wish that small business owners knew about cybersecurity, or something they don't know about cybersecurity?
It's a good question. I think probably identity would be the biggest thing. So oftentimes people are, the browsers will offer to store passwords out of convenience, but they don't do it securely. And so anything can read those passwords. So you can install a coupon clipper and they can read those passwords. And so knowing that the identity is really king, everything is surrounding the identity, making sure that your passwords are unique and that they're safe and they're put into a password vault, that's really king. And then, of course, having multi-factor authentication. So protecting that identity is really the one thing that I would say.
Awesome. So if I'm an owner and I'm trying to figure this out, and hey, is my identity stuff protected? What should I be doing with my IT manager or service team that's taking care of me?
Yeah, talk to them. Really get good advice from them. And things like this. Like if they don't know that, then maybe they're not the right person to talk to. But really talk to them, engage with them, and get that good information that you need.
Now, what else should an owner be doing as far as managing the cybersecurity, or at least being part of the decision making with cybersecurity?
Good question. Really asking a lot of good questions. There's a lot of different frameworks out there. So there's some really simple frameworks that really give some good guidelines as to what somebody should do to protect themselves. And that target is always moving. So owners should really understand where that target happens to be and then do everything that they can to protect themselves. And a lot of those things come down to not very much money involved in doing them. It's just a matter of actually getting it done.
Now, how do you explain to somebody the difference between a framework and maybe a compliance they have to deal with?
Yeah, good question. So a compliance is something that you have to do, whereas a framework is something that experts have gotten together and put something together that says these are the minimums that we need to do. Some frameworks will have sort of a first line framework and a second line if you're a larger business, and then sometimes a third if you're like enterprise. Those are some of the really good ones. So one of the ones that I really like is called CIS, and it actually has that small business, medium-sized business, and then large enterprise business. And so it shows what your due diligence should be all the way along.
Awesome. I love that. The ability to scale down or scale up to the size of the organization and get the right priority for your cybersecurity.
Yeah, I mean, small business is not going to put the money that an enterprise will, a bank will, but they can do what a small business should be doing. And really, a lot of it comes down to legal aspects. If a small business gets breached, they might be asked, how come you didn't do these base minimums? And so they want to do at least those base minimums.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey there. So tell me your name, company, and where you're based out of.
John Tippett with Citricom, and we're headquartered out of the Dallas, Texas area.
Nice. Great place. I go there often. So I've got one question for you today. I'm trying to ask everybody, what's the one thing small business owners don't know or misunderstand about cybersecurity?
About cybersecurity, all of it. It's interesting because the category of cybersecurity, I think, is what's misunderstood. There's a lot of this isn't going to happen to me because security and business operations don't necessarily connect together by a default of a business owner. And so what we're trying to do is make it clear where technology and communication that you're using opens up risk. That risk needs to be managed just like locking the back door of the building or putting an alarm system or locking a file cabinet. And then helping make sure we can expose where that risk is and help get rid of it. So I think collectively getting businesses to understand that there's risk, where it is, and how to address it is the biggest challenge we have right now.
Gotcha. So if I'm a small business owner, where do I start? What do I start thinking about? What do I start doing to get involved with getting my arms around it?
Yes, just realize that just like running a business, you have to think about cash flow and banking. You have to think about having a professional like a CPA look at your taxes. You need an IT provider and a managed services provider to look at your business, help you understand where you have risk, and show you where that is and options that you have to contain it, just to make sure that not only you can keep your business moving and not get sued or have financial losses, but also protect your reputation and the services you provide into your community.
Gotcha. Now, if I get a partner or have an internal person, maybe I'm not technical. What should I do to kind of manage that process or be able to be in control of what's going on for my cybersecurity, even though I'm not technical?
Yeah, it's a good question. And so I guess to break that in parts, even if you have in-house IT or you are in-house IT, working with an external firm is great because they're accustomed to looking at different environments, complex environments, and producing output that you can look at to see exactly what's going on in your network. It's easier, just like using a CPA. You can file your own taxes, but having an outside firm look is helpful. To the second part of your question, if you're not technical, trying to find a firm or someone that can help you translate it to something you can understand. Don't feel stupid or bad against a topic. Ironically, just like taxes, you don't need to know the tax code. You need to feel comfortable that you've connected with an individual who can help translate it to business and help you understand it so that you can make decisions to contain it inside your business.
I like that, the external eye, and I like the parallel to CPA. You may not know all the tax code, but you know some basic questions to ask them and have a basic idea of what you're after.
That's right, and make it their problem to get you comfortable. Don't feel bad. That's why you talk to these folks and help make sure you understand the risk and that you feel comfortable about how to take action.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Hi there. Can you tell me your name, company, and what city you're out of?
Yeah, Alan McDonald. I'm with All Connected, Simi Valley, California.
Well, hey, Alan. I got one question for you. What do you think the one thing that small businesses typically misunderstand about cybersecurity?
Probably it's a shared responsibility.
Shared responsibility. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it's not just a stack of tools and technologies that we put in place to defend a business, but it has to do with people, has to do with process, and it has to do with the attitude from the top down that security needs to be a part of the entire organization's strategy and mindset.
So what's your advice to an executive who's pursuing that and trying to understand the importance of his role as part of that shared risk model?
Yeah, I feel it's important for an executive to be on the same wavelength as us. That generally happens by establishing some kind of framework in the business. Whether it's a cybersecurity framework, it's NIST framework, it's a CMMC framework. Now we in the business can talk the same language on what it means to be secure, what it means to be educated, what it means to be compliant, and so on.
So as part of that process, what do you think that, where should an executive, how much time should they be spending as part of this process on a recurring basis?
That's a good question. I have to think about that. How much time?
Or maybe just what a minimum amount of time they should spend?
Well, it's interesting. We're an EOS shop. We use Traction to help get the company, driving towards our rocks and our goals. We meet weekly as an L10 group to talk about what the most important issues are in the organization. if security is not at that table, if the technology of the business is not at that table, I think it's a big miss for a lot of operational leaders and for a lot of executives in companies. So I'd say weekly.
Weekly? Now, out of that, do you feel like it's a long, deep conversation or just kind of a regular cadence of, hey, let's just keep checking in, let's just keep checking in, let's just keep checking in?
Regular cadence.
Gotcha. All right. Well, thanks so much. I appreciate your time today. Hey there. What's your company name, your name, and what city are you based out of?
Yeah, I'm Tim Bixley, CISO at IT Partners from New Zealand.
Awesome. Well, hey, I've got just one question for you today. What do you think the one thing small businesses misunderstand about cybersecurity?
Preparation.
Preparation?
Yeah.
Talk a little bit more about that.
So, being able to respond, you need the preparation beforehand to have everything lined up to be able to respond properly. And yeah, SMB is cheap. Don't see the investment being appropriate.
So what are the things you do to help an organization get started down the right path?
Buy-in from the top. So, talking to the execs, getting their buy-in about the true risks within the business, and relating those back to actual business risks rather than technical risks.
Gotcha. So the executives that you feel are most successful, what do you think is part of their success?
Willing to invest. So, yeah, not seeing cybersecurity as a pure cost to the business, but it's an investment in the future.
And when you help steward people down that path, is there something you find helps them be really successful?
That's a good question. Probably when they're inquisitive about what cybersecurity could actually do for their business, rather than just standing back and letting it happen.
Gotcha. I like that. The power to ask questions, very, very powerful. You don't have to be an expert. You just have to ask the right questions. Thank you. Hi there. So tell me your name, company, and where you based out of.
Yeah, my name is Rob Floyd, Director of Security at Iron Edge Group, based out of Houston, Texas.
Awesome. So I got one question for you. When you talk with small businesses, what's the one thing that you think that they misunderstand or don't quite know about?
So I think there's a few things, but the one big one is they think they're like small businesses, they won't be attacked because they're too small, they're under the radar, things like that. But it's a matter of when, not if, at this point. And so just making sure that they understand the preparedness, making sure cyber insurance is covered, and they're checking the boxes correctly.
Now, as an executive, what kind of questions should they be asking themselves or asking their IT team or partners?
So ask if your partners have a plan and you have a plan for when that day comes that, bump goes in the night and, basically you get a phone call from your vendor saying that there's issues and they're working on it, and, just make sure that there's plans.
Gotcha. So let's say something happened. What should an executive know, or what should they have ready, or what's your tips to them if something actually happens?
So have a printed version of your cyber insurance policy and who to contact, because that's going to be one of the first things we always recommend is to make that phone call. So if you hear from a company like us and we're saying, hey, we're looking into an incident, you're probably going to need to call your cyber insurance. So make sure that that's available and you know your limits and how to contact them.
And what's the typical turnaround once they contact cyber insurance?
That varies based on the insurance company. It could be hours, it could be days, it could even take up to a week to hear back. Awesome.
Thanks so much. Hey, what's your name? What's your company name? Where are you based out of?
I'm Nathan Jascott. I'm from EverConnect Data Systems in Southern California.
Awesome. Well, you're here at this cybersecurity event, and I'm asking everybody here, what's the one thing you wish small business owners knew about, or what's the one thing they don't always think about?
I think that a lot of companies focus on network security and endpoint security, but they tend to forget about the database stuff. They forget to look into who's accessing their data, what the data looks like, and potential security risks when it comes to locking down their databases or their data.
Now, as you go through and look at those kinds of things, what kinds of things are you typically looking for?
Well, we could set up audits when people are accessing the data. We can audit the security groups and so on and so forth as far as who's able to access the data and who's making the changes to the data, as well as profiling the data, such as is it PII data or is it other types of data that might be sensitive data that is not encrypted or obfuscated.
So if you're an executive and you're trying to help your team figure out what they need to be doing, what should an executive be asking their IT group or IT team or whoever about their data?
Well, it's kind of like a 2 or 3 layer question. The first thing is, do you know who's accessing our data? The second thing would be like, as far as what data is where, and is it backed up and accessible or locked down or obfuscated? So it kind of goes down a funnel as far as the basic questions to the more secure and specific questions.
Awesome. Well done. I appreciate your insight, and I like the idea of focusing on the data, not just the perimeter, the network, or those kinds of areas. You forget about the soft, chewy center about security sometimes.
It's certainly, in a lot of cases, the most critical part of a business that, for some reason, they tend to forget about it.
It's the thing we're all protecting. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, how's it going today?
Good.
Hey, I got one question for you. What's the one thing that you wish small business owners knew about cybersecurity, or that they should know about cybersecurity?
I think the biggest thing I think of when it comes to cybersecurity is set it and forget it's a myth. You know, a lot of people want to set it and forget it, call it lack of lightweight mentality, but it's just impossible with cyber because it's changing all the time.
Yeah, that's a real challenge. So if I'm a small business owner, what kinds of things should I be doing to understand what things are like for our security tools or our environment? Whether it's an internal IT or external IT, whatever, what questions should they be asking?
I think first and foremost is what is the biggest problem you're facing, and how do you attack that quickly, and make sure that it doesn't prolong. Because a lot of times, especially in today's world, things get drug out, you don't address the problem, and then it balloons on you, and all of a sudden you have a bigger problem, right? So if you can simply address the problems right away with the right tools, right people, not really cut corners, because that's where you end up losing a lot. You put yourself in a much better position.
So when you talk to people who are owners, executives, leaders, what do you say to them? How do you coach them to understand cybersecurity and risk and those kinds of
I think
things?
first you set the standard, put the path, and then go that route and build it. And obviously you want to stay on top of the game because it changes so much overnight, right? And that's why we're all in this business.
Now, do you anticipate that AI is going to have an impact for owners, executives, leaders trying to keep track of all their assets?
I think it'll help, and I think it'll help enablement. Right? I think you're going to get a lot more education quicker. You're going to have to learn how to decipher that, which path to choose, because obviously there's so much flavor, I guess, for lack of a better word. But you got to pick a path. AI will definitely help you evolve. It's not going to replace. It should help you be more empowered to make right decisions and put a better stack and security in place.
I like it. Embracing it, understanding it, but trying to figure out where it fits, being intentional.
Yep, very intentional, right? Be intentional with what you're doing and the service you're delivering, and then make sure it matches your brand.
Awesome. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Steve.
All right, here we go. Hey, can you tell me your company name, your name, and what city you're based out of?
Yeah, hey, my name is Dave Sperry. My company is Micro Menders. I'm based out of San Francisco, California.
Awesome. Well, hey, I just have one question for you.
Yep.
What do you think the one thing is that most small businesses don't know about that you wish they did?
Most small businesses don't believe they have a compliance requirement, when virtually every small business has no less than one compliance requirement.
So what are the common compliances that you find people aren't aware that they should be mindful of?
The biggest one is everyone's got a cyber insurance policy, and they don't get that they have a compliance requirement to keep their policy in effect.
So how do you handle that with your clients as far as cyber insurance? Do you guide them through it? Do you let them kind of figure it out and come to you? What works best?
We meet with all of our clients no less than quarterly. We walk through their policy with them all. So we want to do the policy. If they tell us they've got a new policy, we want to ask for a copy, want to read it, tell them that we just want to make sure that we're trying to use the word compliance inside our conversation as much as we can. So we'll talk to them, let them know what we see, whether anything applies, and let them know that whatever it is now, the requirements are just going to be that much more next time around. So we're just trying to get them used to the idea that there's going to be compliance going on.
Any trends you're seeing over the past year or two as far as requirements for organizations?
Above and beyond, we've got some clients that have CMMC requirements that they're very small business. So we're seeing a lot of small businesses that don't have very deep pockets trying to figure out how to handle true regulatory compliance.
Gotcha. Well, thanks so much for your time. Appreciate it. Steve, the Dr. Meek here. I just got back from the Ride of Boom Cybersecurity Conference in Las Vegas, and I learned two things there. Let's see, the first, cybersecurity people in Vegas drink coffee like it's an Olympic sport. I'm not a coffee drinker, but that's how it is. And the second thing, if you're a subject matter expert in cybersecurity and a self-proclaimed doctor, you get to Vegas worn out because you're rereading security frameworks, recent vulnerabilities and fixes to know, checking up on any recent attacks in the news before getting there. Nobody wants to be the guy who doesn't know something. All right, I'm just kidding. Well, but not really on that. So welcome to this special edition of Talk to the Doc. Normally I have a guest, but today it's just me. So I'll be winging a little bit, trying to figure this out as I go along. Now, I plan to share with you, I guess, my insight from the Ride of Boom conference, but I'm going to try to keep it more what I call plain English, or would be plain Texan. I'm not sure. I think of it like this, as maybe the moves leaders in Dallas-Fort Worth must make before the next incident. Now, as part of this, I interviewed some people on the floor. So you already heard some great security takes from the trade show area, from those other subject matter experts. But now I'm going to give you my top 5 executive level takeaways from my 4 days at Ride of Boom. No jargon, kind of avoid the doom and gloom, just the things I think actually change outcomes and reduce the likelihood of things going sideways in your organization. And yes, I'll keep it watchable because if you really wanted a 60-slide technical presentation, well, heck, you'd have been at the conference with me. So to start off with, kind of a central theme of the whole event, I think that my big overarching theme was just that cybersecurity has never been an IT problem. It's always been kind of more of like a leadership operating type of problem, kind of in the vein of a business framework, like a scaling up or attraction. So that being said, I want to get into what I think are my top 5 strategic moves, which I'll prioritize by impact, I think. My first one, my very first insight is turn cybersecurity into a leadership rhythm. Not a once a year panic, not a once a quarter only kind of thing, but if it only comes up when something breaks, you're really not managing risk. You're just taking turns being surprised. So I know that your job isn't to understand every cyber detail, but similar to your primary work function, there's a lot to be said for rhythm. And the cybersecurity job is simply to create kind of a repeatable rhythm where risk gets reviewed, decisions get made, and progress gets measured. So as a simple rule, I think if you have a standing meeting for budgets, whether that's sales, staffing, safety, you kind of need one for cyber resilience too. And that doesn't have to be buying a service. It can simply be things like creating a list of all your hardware in your network to track, rolling out a new policy, doubling down on some cybersecurity awareness training to make sure everyone's up to speed, or just any of the common recommendations in any of the security frameworks. So that's number 1. Number 2, change your thinking of security as resilience. I said it before, kind of continuity, not just IT spend. So at Ride a Boom, one thing was clear. The winners aren't the organizations with the most gadgets. They were there to sell us gadgets, but the organizations that can keep operating when disruption hits are really the organizations you want to be. You want that continuity. So really the question isn't, are we secure? It's more similar to what many people learned when COVID hit. If something happens, can we keep serving customers? Or how fast can we keep serving customers? Or in the case of local government, citizens. So for a city utility, that's water, billing, public safety, email, finance. For the typical SMB, that's going to be things like payroll, your HR system, customer communication, production schedules, all of those kinds of things that occur in those organizations. I mean, the goal is for you is not really to become a cybersecurity expert. It's to learn just enough to know the impact of what happens when you go left, what happens when you go right. Or you might think of it as how do you avoid becoming a cybersecurity news story? Number 3 on my list. Treat Microsoft 365 like critical infrastructure. This one was huge. We saw a lot of organizations there with tools to kind of help out with that. But many organizations only see Microsoft 365 like it's just email, collaboration, Teams meetings, documents, those kinds of things. But it's really become the foundation for your business or for your city. It's easy to think of the technology that we use like a microwave or coffee machine. Your Microsoft 365 tenant is basically like the new server room for your organization. It's not on site, it's in the cloud, but it has all the same symptoms, such as it suffers from entropy, like all technology. Settings age, policies evolve to your organizational needs, users and groups come and go, and Microsoft adds new features and new settings. So we need to continually review Office 365 like it's infrastructure. We're looking for things like, we're looking for baselines, we're looking for drift, we're looking for permissions, changes, change control, those things to help us stay safe. Well, I guess in that effect, it is a little bit like a microwave or a coffee machine in that, sometimes we're saying, hey, it worked yesterday. Of course, if your coffee machine breaks, people get grumpy, but if something breaks within your tenant, well, then you're calling cyber insurance or maybe the FBI. Hey, can I speak to Fox Mulder? That kind of thing. So number 4 on the list, put identity governance on the executive dashboard. It's a little bit harder to do, but for years, Microsoft and other vendors have been saying identity is the new perimeter. That's a reference to how firewalls used to be kind of the main security tool for most organizations. If things couldn't get past the gateway, they couldn't get in. But now, since with Office 365, everything's available all the time on the internet. So at the event, every vendor echoed that phrase through the hallways about identity. And in essence, single sign-on, your identity, your username, your password, that's the master key, because that provides access to email, your files, maybe HR systems, finance, vendors, banking, everything is all related to identity. So if identity gets compromised, it's not an IT problem. It goes back to being that business continuity and liability problem. So I think, as an organization, you should always be asking 3 questions regularly. Who has access to what? How quickly can we remove access when somebody leaves or changes roles? And what do we do when a leader or a leader secretary's account get targeted? What's that Sam Kinison joke? It occurred to us that there wouldn't be world hunger if you people would live where the food is. So, attackers are lazy and they go where the food is. Sometimes that's the big target. Sometimes that's the easy target. You just want to make sure you're mindful of where you fit in that. And then number 5, incident response. Now, incident response is basically a communication plan with a technical appendix. And I guess here's the hard truth. Most organizations don't lose the most money because they didn't have the right tool. They actually lose money because they didn't have a plan. Mike Tyson's quote, that everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. It's the same thing with incident response. If you don't have a plan, or maybe even tabletop that plan, when something happens, you can't react quick enough. You don't know what to do. You don't know how to get organized. Somebody at the event told the story of an incident and nobody knew who was in charge. I mean, you think it's the boss, you think it's the CEO, but in the incident, maybe that's not the case. And so basically it created a situation where everybody was communicating poorly, which increased the damage, increased the downtime, increased the cost that ended up getting passed on to the organization. So for you as that leader, I would say that you always want to make sure that there's some incident plan basics that you should be able to answer. You know, who makes what decisions, who talks to staff, who talks to our end clients, who talks to our citizens, who's going to interact with legal, insurance. What do we say in the first hour? And in addition to to having a digital copy of your incident response plan, you also want to have a printed version. A guy there had a great story about that as well. So, with incident response, you're not there to speculate. You don't want to promise timelines. You don't want people freestyling in what they're doing because it's a crisis. In a crisis situation, you don't need 17 spokespeople. You need one calm voice and that plan of steps and contacts, knowing who to reach for all those things that happen. And remember, during an incident, your cyber insurance provider can become a major partner during an incident. So that needs to be baked into your leadership plan, not trying to figure out at 3:14 a.m. in the morning on a Sunday or during the Super Bowl. Isn't it weird how people who have incidents or everyone who told their story, it's always at like a really awkward time. But anyways, if you want to know more about cyber insurance, you can also check out my recent podcast where I interview a cyber insurance provider that has a lot more tips and advice for organizations around cyber insurance. So anyways, that kind of brings me to the end of my 5 tips. So, let's just kind of quickly review those top 5 strategic moves from Ride a Boom. This is my DFW edition. So first, make cybersecurity a leadership rhythm. Second, measure resilience. That's your ability to keep operating during an incident, during an issue when something happens. The third thing was treat Microsoft 365 like an infrastructure. It's more than just email. Fourth thing, put identity governance on the executive dashboard. That can simply be things like every quarter reviewing your list of users on Office 365 or on your network, making sure double checking that HR communicated all those exits and terminations, or those people who changed roles, that we knew about it or that your provider knows about it, so they can make sure that they have the right permissions on things. And then the last thing there is building incident response around the organizational roles and, I guess, communications. Now, obviously, Fulcrum Group, my company, can help with all of those things, but this is for you. This is for anybody, whether your IT is internal, whether you use a different provider. This podcast is aimed at everybody. So for you, be a good leader, go lead well, protect your people, and please, for the love of all that is holy, don't click superstitious links like it's a hobby. I'm your host, Steve the Dr. Meek, and the doctor is out. Thank you so much. See you next time. Be safe.